Good afternoon. This is Rahul Reddy. Today we are live here to update about the October visa bulletin. Why October visa bulletin is very important is that because the fiscal year starts in October of every year. Emily, what do we have an update? Why is this October visa bulletin much different than what you have ever seen when you started practicing immigration law?
Yeah, I think that USCIS and Department of State are kind of taking a different method going forward. Typically, we've always seen a big jump in the dates in October. Rest of world was typically current in October in all categories so that USCIS could accept all of the filings early in the fiscal year and they had the entire fiscal year to work on them. Now they're kind of in the visa bulletin, they're saying there's a little note that says they're trying to keep the dates where they are, to keep numbers within their quarterly limits. And so I think that we're going to see this slower movement forward based on how many green cards are available each quarter, rather than the full year's worth of green cards being available. Let's take in as many cases as we can so that we have an entire year to process them. On top of that, I think USCIS updated some FAQs today as well. And they're saying that already they still have enough EB2 and EB3 India cases pending to utilize all of this year's available visas, as well as going into future fiscal years, which means that this visa bulletin is going to continue like this, even beyond the 2024 fiscal year.
So do you mean to say that they are not going to move the final action dates? Let's say, for example, for EB2 is January 2012 and EB3 is May 2012, or you mean to say that they're not going to move beyond January of 2015? Remember, Emily, that at one point of time, the priority dates for EB3 were all the way to January of 2015. I mean, anybody who filed in 2014 were able to file the adjustment of status.
Yeah, I think that we may see a forward movement of maybe 6 months for both EB2 and EB3 India over the entire fiscal year, and that's it. We're going to be stuck in 2012 for some time, based on where the dates for filing are in the October bulletin. The dates for filing, since they came out in 2015, have supposedly been an estimate of where the final action dates should be by the end of the fiscal year. And they're just about 6 months ahead of where the final action dates are for the October visa bulletin.
Is this the first time you're seeing, Emily, in the rest of the world to be not current in the October visa bulletin? Of course, we have seen in other visa bulletin, October is when they start. How long ago was it that it was not current?
Yeah, so for EB2 rest of world, this is the first time the October visa bulletin, when we have an entire year's worth of green cards available, is not current. That's a big problem.
I think so. If I recall, it's for the rest of the world. I think so. This is from past 30 years. It was always current.
Yeah, exactly. In October. Now, in previous years, there have been about 13 months going back 20 years since I've been practicing where EB2 rest of world was not current in months other than October. But this is the first time it's not been current in October. So that's suggesting that for the rest of the year, it's going to be backlogged, which is bad news for EB2 India, because again, there's not going to be that spill across. The 7% per country limit is going to kick in, limiting India. Now, one thing that is interesting, it's not in the visa bulletin, but it's in the FAQs, I believe. They specified that this year we're still getting some family-based spillover, about 25,000. So this year's employment-based approximation is 165,000 green cards available for the year compared to the normal 140,000. But this is likely the last year that we're going to see that because COVID is finally, things are opened back up at the consulates. They're processing those family-based cases. I really wasn't expecting any spillover this year, but it looks like there's 25,000 added to the employment-based one more time.
Emily, one other thing on the EB1 India, though, which used to be before October of 2020, it used to be priority date was backlogged all the way to 2018. Now I see the final action date as January 1st, 2017. Of course, the filing date is a little bit better, which is July 2019. I mean, where would these people come from, though? Could it be that a lot of the people on EB2 are upgrading to EB1? Is that the reason?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think part of it is people in EB2, EB3 are getting those additional skills that fit them into the EB1A category. So we're seeing record numbers of those petitions being filed. Even EB1C, those are the highest of EB1A, B, and C. Most of the filings in EB1 are EB1C, so that's picking up as well. We've been seeing people going back to India to work for a year to be able to come back into EB1 and port their old date. So people, kind of how in the old days people would port from EB3 into EB2 once they gained 5 years of experience or got a U.S. master's degree. Now we're seeing people porting from EB2 into EB1, keeping their old priority date. So they're kind of cutting in line, I would say, which is allowed. From people who are just now filing their first I-140 in the EB1 category.
There are a couple of predictions, people were predicting. One thing was that will the USCIS accept the filing dates to be the one which is in October? Historically, they were accepting the filing dates. And in October of 2023, they're still accepting the filing dates, which is a good news to an extent. What about the 56 congressmen letters that went to the administration? What happened about it, making all the dates current?
So obviously they didn't make the dates current, but I do feel like it had an impact, and that impact is seen in the FAQs that USCIS put out today. So they're the same FAQs that they've had going back to 2021, 2022. But they've added new sections. And so basically USCIS came out and said, we're trying to work with Congress to find some kind of solutions, but we continue to emphasize that the imbalance between the high demand for immigrant visas and the decades-old statutory annual limits needs to be addressed, and that only Congress can alleviate that situation. So they're putting the ball back in Congress's court. But they do list several measures that USCIS has taken, regulatory changes, updates in how they process things to try to alleviate some of the burdens, which are helpful. So I do feel like that letter writing campaign did have an impact. Obviously, it didn't have the result that we wanted, but it's been made very clear that it's got to be Congress. We've got to be advocating before Congress. We've got to get.
Oh, come on, Emily. I don't know how to approach Congress right now because they're divided.
Well, I will say, if anyone has been paying attention to the group Improve the Dream, which is the Documented Dreamers group, they've been doing amazing advocacy efforts. They've gotten multiple hearings before Congress, even one just this week, and they are getting bipartisan support for the issues that these age-out kids are facing. And these are a group of kids with no budget, no money. They're actually talking to their congressmen. They're not threatening litigation. They're not threatening calling people racist. They're not calling people, slave owners and that sort of thing. They're taking a very different tactic to their advocacy. And I do think it's working way better than anything employment-based applicants have been doing.
I would still advise people to go multi-pronged, not just settle down with Congress, but also approach the administration. Because when it comes to the undocumented DACA kids, though, they're not documentedly present in the country. They did give the employment authorization for them. That was happened with the administration. It did not went to the Congress. We haven't had any major legislation, in fact, not minor legislation also on immigration. So I definitely feel approaching both Congress and also approaching the administration to change their policy by not counting the family members and by making all the people who have an I-140 approval to get the employment authorization. They have given the I-140 people employment authorization, but somebody hijacked it and made it a compelling circumstances EAD. It's only valid for 1 year. You can't, to extend it, you have to make it a lot of different efforts. They didn't went to Congress to have the compelling circumstances EAD. They could just ease that. Hey, you can apply instead of compelling circumstances. Can they decrease that and they can give the compelling circumstances, or even they increase the compelling circumstances year to 5 years or 6 years of EAD. That will be much better. Or the first EAD will be a little bit tough, but the next extensions can be more easier. So I don't. The administration could make that thing too. That's the way I believe in. Emily, with regards to EB2 and EB3 rest of the world, why do you think so? That's going to have negative impact on Indians, though.
Yeah, so the 7% cap that really negatively impacts Indians and Chinese only kicks in when all of the green cards are expected to be used up in a fiscal year. And the fact that we have cutoff dates in rest of world for EB2 and EB3 tells us that they expect that all of the green cards are going to be used up this fiscal year, which means we're going to be subject to that 7% cap. So no spill across from unused rest of world EB2 green cards. That's not be available, and India is limited to just the 7%. And we're also with record high numbers filing in EB1, we're likely not to see any spill down from EB1 into EB2. So EB2 is basically going to become the new EB3, where there's no extra green cards available and the 7% cap is going to be there. It's going to be moving very slowly.
People are asking the question with regards to, we got the 25,000 extra green cards. Will it not improve the situation for Indian nationals like the way it did in the fiscal year of 2021, Emily?
Unfortunately, no, because in those earlier years, we had the extra green cards, but rest of world was current, meaning that there were enough green cards to where we weren't going to run out based on the high demand in rest of world. There was a much lower demand there. Now, rest of world demand is so high that even though we've got an extra 25,000 green cards, they're not going to go only to India. They're going to go some to China, some to rest of world. They're going to go across the board. We're stuck with just the 7%.
So out of the 25,000, 7% will be approximately around 2,000, somewhere around that will be given to Indian nationals. So that's a benefit.
And that's across all EB1,
EB1, EB2, and EB3 category. The 2,000 will be a little bit more to the EB1 category, most probably, because at least it looks like the EB1 category, the rest of the world is current, including Mexico, Philippines, and the rest of the world is current. So it may benefit EB1s a little bit, not a significant. I was very disappointed with the EB1. I was expecting the final action date to be somewhere in 2018, but I am a little bit correct on that because the final action date is 2017, but the filing date is 2019 for Indian nationals and EB1. Now, let's. What do people need to do right now, Emily? Of course, they need to approach the Congress. That's what you say. I will say approach the administration. We disagree on that. That's fine. Anything else?
I would say for people whose final action date became current again. So maybe you filed your 485, the date went backwards, it's come forward, it's gone backwards again. Now it's forward again. If you're current today and your 485 is pending, you may want to consider delay litigation to get your green card approved before dates go backward again. Now, I do think that the way they've moved the dates suggests that maybe they're trying to stop this retrogression from happening, moving the dates forward slowly over time so that they don't have to go back and move them backwards later. But you may want to consider that if your 485 has been pending and you've already gone back and forth with this whiplash and your date's current now, litigate, get it over with so you don't have to worry about retrogression again. That would be one thing to consider. Beyond that, looking into EB1, which is the least backlogged of all of the categories, to see if there's any option because you can port your priority date there. EB5 may also be an option for people to invest. You've built a life here. You may have funds available to invest in some of those categories, even though the processing time of the petition for EB5 can be very long. They do allow concurrent filing when the dates are current. So EB5 is current for some of the special categories, the newer categories of EB5, the rural, the high unemployment or infrastructure projects.
Emily, we have religious workers unavailable though. That's very surprising though.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that till just now.
Yeah. Let's go to questions, Emily, unless you have something else.
Nope.
People are asking, Canada. Atul Mohan is asking, yeah, you guys need to have plan B, guys, because, and some people are asking, do we have to listen to you guys for the next 10 years? Unfortunately, yes. Either us or our competitors, somebody like that, yes. If the things remain as they are, the priority dates are expected to move at a for the next 3-4 years, though, definitely we're not expecting priority date to cross January of 2015. We're definitely not expecting, if we were to believe in what the USCIS and State Department has indicated to us. Emily, the other surprising thing was that the FAQs were updated today on the USCIS website the day the visa bulletin was being released. So normally we don't see this kind of coordinated effort to give it to the people between the USCIS and State Department. Historically, that has not been there. It's always sometime later on when we keep on crying, the USCIS update the thing. Also, I've seen that whether USCIS is going to accept the date of filing, the reaction was very fast by the USCIS. What is your observation on that?
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that is very much due to the letter writing campaign about making the dates current. USCIS has to be able to have some logical reason why they didn't do that or couldn't do that, and explain what steps they're taking to try to improve the system. And that's why they're coming out trying to get ahead of complaints and putting that information out today, the same day that the visa bulletin comes out, the same day that USCIS confirms now that we can use the filing date chart, because before, as you said, it used to take up to a week before they would let us know. So definitely we're seeing more coordination there. I think that there are, it's somewhat good in that they're taking these things more seriously and trying to see that the stress it causes people with these dates.
Emily, can you hear me?
Flashed. Yeah, I can hear you. Might be having some technical difficulties there. So yeah, I do think that there's more coordination going on between Department of State and USCIS, and it's because of the mass contact they're getting with complaints about this system. The system doesn't work, for sure. And they're trying to come out and, of course, blame Congress for the foundation of the system, which that's where the blame is. But besides continuing to advocate in Congress, we've got to continue to advocate for other ways that Department of State and USCIS may be able to provide some relief while we also advocate before Congress. I also think with rest of world being backlogged now, this, first time in the October bulletin, when the very beginning of the fiscal year comes out, that may help with the advocacy efforts, because up till now, it's typically been Indians that have been advocating, and it's been rest of world people that have kind of been saying, no, we don't want to eliminate the 7% cap because we're going to have to wait. Well, now guess what? They do have to wait, even with the 7% cap. So they're going to get tired of waiting, and hopefully they will join in the advocacy efforts, and we can all band together to try to get some solutions here. We need to recapture unused visas. We need to stop counting family members. Those things can be done while we're trying to advocate for elimination of the cap and, ultimately raising the cap. Clearly, that's what needs to happen if we don't eliminate counting family members.
Emily, with the backlog of the employment base, we can also see amount of people whose H-1B extensions will be there, H-4 EADs. There will be a lot of those people who will be here in the United States. The H-1B population will increase more, though, unless they try to move out of this country. One other thing is that the age-out kids will be, number of people of age-outs could be very significantly higher. Those kids who are born outside the country, they are coming into the country. I want parents to be watchful about the psychological behavior of the kids, though, because all of a sudden, when they become 21, then you say that, no, you need to go through this H1B, you need to go through this video sessions of Reddy Neumann PC every week or somebody else like that. It's very hard for them to digest it. So you may want to inculcate the idea that, look, buddy, you are different than the rest of the people. You may want to educate the kid. I don't know if required, consult a psychologist to train the kid, saying that, no, you have to go through this system if you want to stay in this country. And it's not going to be automatic for you. If you want to get admission in the college, you need to get the F1 student. Then afterwards, if you want to work, you don't have a work permit, you have to get to the H1B. And after that, you want to stay in this country, you have to apply for the, once you get in the lottery. Now, the lottery is another problem that we would have. And then afterwards, getting the green card is never going to be for the kid too, because based on the priority date for him, it's going to be 50, 60 years after. So it's definitely the kids need to prepare. Those people who are born in India, those kids need to be well prepared. I don't know how to make them prepare, but if you can, anybody can suggest, please let me know those people who have dealt with the kids, who have handled them properly. You can suggest us so that we can speak with other people too.
Ramesh says, is there any way to know how many applications are pending for each category? So we don't have the inventory that USCIS used to put out before the Trump administration. We do have a Freedom of Information Act request ongoing to get that data. In the meantime, what we do have is the quarterly report that USCIS has to put out. The last one is the March 2023 data, I believe, through the first 2 quarters of the last fiscal year. So they do put out how many 485s have been filed in all the different categories, how many are approved, and how many remain pending. So you can find that on the USCIS statistics page. They have kind of a running list of all of their quarterly reports that come out. And then another Ramesh asked, can you please elaborate more on the I-485 litigation process? So we've been filing these delay lawsuits for the last couple of years when we were seeing USCIS just not adjudicating the applications, and there was fear that the priority dates were going to move back and people were going to miss out. So basically, we are filing a lawsuit in federal court arguing that under the Administrative Procedures Act, USCIS, a government agency, is acting unreasonably in delaying the approval and the adjudication of the 485 application. These are filed again in federal court. It's filed electronically. You never have to actually physically appear in court. Once you file that lawsuit, the government then has 60 days to respond to the lawsuit. In a number of cases, they will try to adjudicate the 485 during that time and then ask us to withdraw the lawsuit. So that's kind of the outcome that we are hoping for when we're filing the litigation. But again, that's, that we've had to resort to that because USCIS processing times are terrible. One thing with these dates, if they're trying to say they're working on keeping things within their quarterly limits. So if we have 165,000 green cards available, that means between USCIS Department of State, every quarter they should be approving 41,250 applications. That means if they're getting applications filed now, are they going to be approving them in the first quarter so that this quarter we use up the 41,000 and then next quarter they'll move the dates forward a little more, take more applications and approve those within the quarter? I doubt it. Obviously, they have not been approving things that fast. I think the current processing times are basically 24 months for any 485 out there, but maybe litigation is a way to get them to improve their processing times.
Also, those people who are in adjustment of status, especially if their priority date is 2013 or 2014, those who are contemplating and moving into EAD and start having a burden of maintaining H1Bs and H4s and EAD, H4 EADs and adjustment of status, you may want to consider very seriously moving into the adjustment of status EAD because it's
looks like we're having some difficulties there. Fanny says, I saw a tweet from Emily saying USCIS confirmed that EB applicants can use the date for filing chart. What does that mean? So in the visa bulletin, every month they have 2 charts. Chart A is the final action date chart. That's the date that you can actually receive the green card approval. Chart B is the date for filing chart. that's the date that every month USCIS will decide whether you can use that chart or not. The date for filing chart B, is usually further advanced to allow USCIS to take in additional filings earlier than they would under the final action date chart. And so for October 2023, if you are filing the adjustment of status, you can go by the date for filing chart, the chart B, to determine whether you can file. To determine whether you can actually receive your green card if you've already filed, you have to go by the final action date chart. That is chart A, which is typically further back than chart B. Now, the other thing between these two charts, the filing date chart is generally a prediction of where the final action dates will be by the end of the fiscal year. So people are asking kind of for predictions. And of course, we say all the time, we can never accurately predict. We've gone wrong so many times. The dates for filing chart give us the best prediction available, because that's basically Department of State's prediction. So if you're wondering, okay, EB1 India is at January 2017 right now, final action date. The filing date is July 2019. That means throughout this fiscal year, from October 2023 to September 2024, the final action date should hopefully advance by 2.5 years for EB1 India. Now, if you look at EB2 India, final action date is now January 2012, whereas the filing date is May 2012. That means EB2 India may only move forward 6 months out of this entire fiscal year. Same thing for EB3. It's May 2012 to August 2012. So only a few months forward movement expected for EB3. Of course, these dates can change depending on how many applications get filed, depending on how fast USCIS adjudicates them, depending on how many people are applying at the consulate, which that's been much higher over the past couple of years. So all that to say, it's practically impossible to predict. So the filing date chart is our best guess.
People are asking, if my 485 application is pending, can I go to Canada and get back without interrupting the 485 application and try the EB1 route? No, you may be interrupting your current adjustment of status. You probably need to consult a lawyer to evaluate, is it worth abandoning the EB2 or EB3 application and then going outside the country and coming back. It doesn't mean just because you go and work outside the country for 1 year, you're assured that your EB1 will be approved. I mean, there are some things that need to be taken care for EB1C. The position must be a high-level position which can qualify for EB1C. Otherwise, you go outside the country, you lose the 485 application, you come back and EB1C doesn't get approved, you will have neither this one nor that one. That's a very bad situation. So it's a very calculated risk that you need to do.
If you have questions, want more information about the litigation option, reach out to Stephen Brown in our office at steven@rnlawgroup.com. You can go to our website and find his contact information. You can set up a consultation with him. He can give you all the details about the cost and the timeline and that sort of thing. And then question from David, my 485 status changed to case remains pending back in November 2022. This is EB3, other workers, rest of world. What does it mean and when do I expect to get it approved? So that case remains pending update basically means that at that time they had already run out of green cards for your category based on your priority date. So they're just putting your case on a shelf until a green card actually becomes available. So according to the October 2023 visa bulletin, EB3 other workers rest of world cutoff date is 2020. So if your priority date is before August 2020, that means your date is now current and USCIS can move forward with your application. You'll want to look at whether your medical exam has expired, if there are any missing documents, and be prepared for that. Be prepared to be called in for an interview. But if your priority date is after August 2020, your case is going to continue to remain on hold, even though under Chart B, the date may be current.
Emily, I'm just contemplating with a lot of EB1C getting approved right now. We have new guidelines that came out for EB1A and EB1B that is encouraging the STEM degree people, STEM people, that is mostly computer science people will fall into the STEM people though. Could it be that a lot of these people could move to EB1 and EB1 can be backlogged significantly, Emily?
Yeah, and we've definitely seen that in the years prior to COVID. I mean, I had put the data up on immigrationgirl.com with a table of going all the way back, I think 20 years, how many EB1 approvals there were every year for India. And it just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And that's only going to continue because that's the only thing that has the best timing now, with the EB2 and EB3 dates being so backlogged. So more and more people are going to be in EB1, and that EB1 date, I don't see it becoming current ever. I think it's going to slow down just like EB2 and EB3 did.
What if the people who are in 2016 and 2015 and 2016, Emily, they go outside the country and come back, and the date may slowly progress? That's the assumption that I'm having, because I see a lot of trend in people going outside the country. I see a lot of trend in people applying the EB1A category also. For those people, you may want to look into considering if you are eligible for EB1A category, because now with the new guidelines that came from the USCIS, you may want to reconsider yourself to see if you're eligible for EB1. You can put the date from EB2 and EB3 into EB1.
Indranil says, any idea why F2A final action date didn't move, given it was current for so long? Yeah, I know we're talking about employment-based here, but F2A became important because last year we had so many employment-based 485s where USCIS approved the main applicant and for whatever reason separated the spouse or separated the kid. And now the date goes backwards, so they can't even approve them even if they wanted to. So we had a lot of people that were forced to file under the F2A category as a spouse of a green card holder because their employment-based case was still ongoing, and that date retrogressed so far, and F2A was current. So more and more people were having to file an F2A than ever before. Not a lot of people file in that category. Either you get your employment based, or your spouse eventually becomes a citizen and files under the immediate relative category. But with employment based so backlogged, F2A became the only option for those people that got separated, and now that's a mess.
Emily, one thing with regards to the EB3 though, the filing date says it's February 2023 though right now. That means actually it's current for practicality though. EB3 requires a labor certification approval. They are adjudicating the labor certifications that we have filed in October of 2022. That means that EB3, I consider for practical reasons, it's current. When EB3 is current, except for the national interest waiver people, rest of the world people, if they have a labor certification, they can always convert into EB3 and file the 485 application. So for all the employment-based to rest of the world, except for the national interest waiver, because they can't convert into EB3, and all those people who are in the EB3, I mean, practically your prior date is current. For the filing date is current at least, though. Not the final action date, for filing date is current. Because only the labor certification that we filed in October are getting approved, so the delay is there. It is current to an extent, so if any, because people are asking, rest of the world is not current, rest of the world is not current, why is it? No, practically the Zoomer is asking rest of the world is not current, but for those people who have the labor and I-140 approved, practically it's current.
Bhavesh says, does the October visa bulletin dictate the whole year's movement, or can it change? So what we've seen in the past is typically the October visa bulletin filing date chart B, was kind of dictated for the entire year. We didn't see much change in chart B after October. It was chart A, the final action date, that would slowly move forward towards the filing date chart. But that kind of went out the water the last year or two, where I don't think anyone could predict where the dates should be, and so they moved them too far forward or not enough forward, and they had to keep fixing the filing date chart throughout the year. So it did change multiple times last year. The other problem was then, even though we're changing the date, USCIS wouldn't let us use it most of the time. So generally, yes, the filing date does predict where, does move in October and stay that way for most of the year. But it can move depending on demand, depending on how many approvals they're issuing and all of these different factors.
Funny is asking this question. Emily has tweeted saying that the USCIS is now accepting the filing dates. What does that mean?
I think I answered that one already.
Oh, sorry. Some of the people are questioning whether the Congress or the administration gives more importance to the undocumented aliens or to those people who are paying high taxes. Let me tell you a simple answer to that. They do give high priority to those undocumented aliens than that of the people who are earning a lot more money. One of the reasons is that these people go and ask the congressman that they want these things to be done. Let's say, for example, their families are separated. The brothers and sisters, the parents, the spouses, they are complaining to the congressman, look, my husband is there, they are not allowing, my brother is there, my cousin is there, not my cousin, my mother is there. They're complaining a lot and they're getting the benefit. Our guys, we are just happy that we have a vice president that is an Indian. We have the Microsoft CEO, we are Google CEO, we are only projecting those people there. Nobody is representing the sufferings that you are having to the congressman. They only see Indians. Oh, that must be Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella. But we are not. I mean, we don't have the green cards and we don't count for them. We don't give the voices to them. So that's where the congressman people don't give that much importance to you guys as compared to the undocumented aliens. So it is your duty for you to write. We have given all the draft letters where we are telling the administration not to count the family members, not to, and also make all the priority dates current. Keep writing those things. Anything else, Emily?
I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to discuss.
Reddy Neumann PC do have a free conference call every day. People can come and ask the question. The link is provided there at the bottom. Every day from past 11 years, we are doing free conference calls, Zoom calls that are there. You can come and ask the question. I, or Emily, or somebody else, a lawyer, will be available 5 days a week. We are available from past 11 years. We are there. If ever you want to make a private consultation with me, Emily, Stephen, or anybody else in our office, you can go to the link that is provided there. Our schedule is available online based on what schedule you would like. You can block a time that suits you. Anything else, Emily?
Nope, I think that's good. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.